Let's welcome her to the program. She's an actor, director, and filmmaker of the short film Toni, Mamie, and Connie. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome her to the program, Ashleigh Curry. Hello, Ashleigh. Welcome to the program.
Hello. How are you? I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. So before we get more into the short film that you directed, I want to start off with your upbringing in North Carolina. Where specifically did you grow up in North Carolina, and what was your upbringing like?
Absolutely. I graduated. I was born in Gastonia, North Carolina. If you don't know where that is, that's close to Charlotte, North Carolina. And my upbringing was pretty well. I have a couple of sisters. I have one brother, and mom and dad, and we all had a pretty good childhood, of course. And then at that time, I was always interested in acting, always interested in theater, plays, film, TV. And so when I got to college, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. That's when I actually got a chance to be in a lot of the plays that I was able to take part in. And then, of course, it kind of got more into the film and TV aspect when I found my agent at KU Talent Agency in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then from there, it just kind of blossomed. And then I was able to branch out and see other people writing their own films and writing their own shows that were good friends of mine. And I thought, well, if they're able to do it, then why not I?
Awesome, absolutely. And why not you? I mean, everybody's voice deserves to be heard, and everybody's creativity is definitely welcome. And that's one of the beauties of the arts. It gives everyone different viewpoints and different vantage points on how to express themselves in more ways than one. And I want to stay just with your upbringing in North Carolina. As far as sports is concerned, North Carolina has been known as a state that prides itself on basketball, being through so many great basketball players. But we know that football has also been popular in North Carolina as well. What about baseball? Is baseball received pretty well as basketball and football in North Carolina?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's mostly basketball and football. I would say baseball, I didn't really get have an appreciation until I got much older. In North Carolina, it's mostly geared towards football and basketball. So I did play softball back when I was in middle school and earlier than that, but it was more so just, going to the Boys and Girls Clubs and being able to play those team sports. But, yeah, it was mostly just a basketball and football type of state.
All right, awesome. And I want to get now into your introduction to acting. You mentioned about going to college and really getting your feet wet into theater and then later developing those skills and then getting into filmmaking. What was your introduction to acting like? Did it start in college or was it earlier than that?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely earlier than that. But when I got into college, that's when I was really able to blossom, I would say. I met one of the great professors at Chapel Hill. Her name is Miss Kathy Perkins and Miss Catherine Hunter Williams. I was able to reach out to them, and they had a couple of plays that I would, of course, be interested in. I was a part of, it's pronounced God, but it's spelled GAAD. So I was a part of that production at UNC. And then I was also a part of Tunnel of Oppression, which is just a series of monologues that you do just to talk about different oppression that we see. And it was there that I actually met my agent, and she pretty much said I was doing pretty well, but I would do better doing film and TV, and have I thought about doing that. And at the time, being someone from Gastonia, I didn't really think about it. And I thought it was honestly just she was playing a trick, like pranking me. And I was able to meet her again, and that's when we were able to just connect the dots. And she's now my agent. So that's really where it started, is in Chapel Hill.
Awesome. And, of course, that training and, of course, early on, and then, of course, to continue to develop and foster those talents going into college that set you up for what you currently do. And we're going to get more into Toni, Mamie, and Connie, the short film that you directed and produced in just a little bit. But I want to transition now into baseball, specifically Major League Baseball. Did you have any favorite Major League Baseball teams growing up?
Yeah, being so close to Georgia, to Atlanta, I would have to say the Atlanta Braves was definitely my favorite. And that's where we would go sometimes over the weekend and go to a game every once in a while. So definitely the Braves.
I want to get now into another experience that's been valuable, not just for Black people, but just in all of society. And people are still trying to get the historical nature and the references from the Negro Leagues. I wanted to ask you, this is a two-part question. Where did your knowledge of the Negro Leagues come from? Did it come from family members or friends or doing research? And what were some of the amazing things that you learned from the Negro Leagues?
I really learned a lot from my grandmother. She would tell me lots of things that happened during her time and how excited she was to go and see those games and things of that nature. So a lot of my knowledge of the Negro Leagues happened with my grandmother. And it didn't really blossom from there. Of course, I learned it in school, but there's so much stuff that we don't know that is oftentimes left out. And that's the thing here, is that once I got out of school, I began to see things and hear things and do a lot of research. And that actually took me to, actually go on my own research at times. And that's how I found out about the three ladies. Because, of course, you know about Hank Aaron. You know about Jackie Robinson, you know about Satchel Paige, you know about all these individuals, but there are a lot of people who are in the background that we don't know about. And so I believe, of course, in schools we're taught about it. We go through it every year. Black History Month, we talk about different figures that are there, and they are great in their ways as well. But there are also people who we don't know about that go hidden. And we don't know about them. And a lot of people kind of just think, oh, it's just these specific people. No, it's a lot of people that are out there that we don't know about, that we may see every day. Or we may, think about their story and say, oh, wow, I didn't know that this person was actually in the Negro League. But it's things like that, and that's the reason why I wanted to do this film, is to be able to bring awareness. There are so many hidden figures that we don't know, that we just would never know if we don't do the research and we don't look into it.
I wanted to continue just talking more about the Negro Leagues. You mentioned that you learned about the history of the Negro Leagues through your grandmother. Did she tell you about a lot of the teams that were in the Negro League? And if so, what were those teams?
Yeah, so I know about the Black Hornets. I know about the Clowns. I remember her telling me a lot about the Kansas City. I remember those are the specific, and I believe the Birmingham, I just can't think of the title or their mascot, but I know specifically she would tell me about the Indianapolis Clowns, and she would just mention a lot of the different people that of course were playing there. So a lot of those names and the mascots and the individuals were all being taught to me by my grandmother at a very young age. And then when I got older and was in school, of course, that's when I was able to kind of put the pieces together.
You definitely were able to put the pieces together for this short film that you directed, produced, and starred in, called Toni, Mamie, and Connie. And it details these three African-American women, these trailblazers that played in the Negro Leagues during the 1950s, Toni Stone, Mamie Johnson, and Connie Morgan. Just tell the listeners out there just what Toni, Mamie, and Connie is all about, and what did you learn about this during the research for this short film?
Yeah, so first the film is about these three ladies, and it goes back from their background, of course, when they were coming up, and when a lot of times I would piece those together between their childhood and then now. So the current state, or the current I guess the scene in the movie that we kind of bounce back and forth between is now where they're actually facing, or they're playing their last game as a clown. And so it goes back, and it has different moments where it looks back into each lady's childhood. And it just tells you how much they were able to overcome their obstacles and overcome even family members telling them, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. I think you should be doing this. Because during that time, of course, women didn't play baseball. They didn't, do what they were not supposed to do as it, pertains to their husbands. They did what was expected of them. And these ladies did that, but then they also were able to live out their dreams. So it goes back and forth between that time in their lives. The research process was a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading. Martha Ackman, I believe is her name. She has a book on Toni Stone, and it also features a little bit about Mamie Johnson and Connie Morgan as well. Pictures of that time when they were, of course, in the league, and it also tells about their time after, what actually happened after they, retired from baseball. So I used that, and I also, there was also a play, Toni Stone, that was also, I look forward to, reached out to the person who played Toni Stone to get a lot of insight from her. There's a play also, Mamie's Right Arm, or A Good Right Arm. I read that book. That's about Mamie Johnson and how she kind of overcame her obstacles growing up in the South and moving to D.C. and moving this way and that way, and then being able to have that dream and to accomplish her dream. So it took a lot of different books that I read, researching online as well, to be able to pull those elements together and then come up with a script.
Wow, that's amazing how you were able to connect the dots and put this project together. I want to stay with the short film for a moment. Doing research and just preparing for the interview, there was mentioning of women's professional baseball league that started during World War II, and there was a movie that was loosely based on this back in the 90s, A League of Their Own, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, with Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, and Gina Davis. And what was also mentioned at the beginning was that these women, well, black women to be exact, were not allowed to play in this league because it was predominantly white. Did you dive deep into what happened as a result of not just Toni, Mamie, and Connie, but other black women that were talented in baseball and not being allowed to play in this other professional baseball league?
Yeah, absolutely. I do know that there were other women that wanted to try out as well, and they were told the same thing, hey, you can't try out because, you are not white. The only one that I was able to see and able to find in research was that Mamie. Mamie was the only one that took it a step further and said, okay, well, if I can't play with the white women, what about the black men? I know that I'm not able to do it in this capacity, but nobody's ever tried to. Or Toni Stone was the one who was actually, doing it before Mamie was. But she thought, I'm going to take it a step further and not let this denial get me down, and to essentially take on the guys. And so she didn't stop there. And, of course, with Toni Stone being in there as well, being playing baseball as well, that was looked at as motivation for her to do so. So being able to see that she was there, that's what made me feel like, okay, I can do it too. And then Connie came after Mamie because she saw the ladies and she was very excited and wanted to do what they were doing as well. So it wasn't a situation where one person was able to be on the team and they said, well, nobody else, I'm not going to help anybody else. I'm going to be the only woman to be on the Negro League baseball team. No, these ladies helped each other up the ladder to be able to get what they needed to do, and they wanted to accomplish their dreams. So with Mamie, yeah, she was the only one that tried out for the team, for the All-American baseball team, girls baseball league, but that didn't stop her there. Normally, the ladies would just stop there and say, okay, well, maybe this isn't what I should do. Mamie took it a step further to say, well, if I can't play with the white women, I'll be able to play with the black men.
Okay, and I want to stay, again, just with these women and specifically with the Negro Leagues. Who was the commissioner and the president of the Negro Leagues at that time?
Good question. So the commissioner at that time, I believe, was Andrew Rube Foster. So what happened was him and a couple other the team owners, they came together to create at first it was called the Negro National League, that was in the 20s. But what happened was, so Toni Stone was the first lady to be able to, I would say, break the barrier on the Negro League team. And what happened was she would actually be playing baseball, not professionally, just, of course, recreationally around the community. And she got so good that there was Sid Pollock, Pollack. He was one of the ones that saw her playing. Oh, wow, she's really, really good. I've never seen a woman play like that before. And Toni Stone, being who she is, she continued to play until Sid reached out to her and to her husband and said, wow, you're amazing at what you do. Would you be able to play for this team? And, we'll give you an audition or a tryout to be able to see how this works, and then we can take it from there. Well, she ended up Hank Aaron was on the team. She took his spot because, of course, he went on to be in the major leagues. But she took his spot. So that tells you right there how well she was able to do it and how well she was able to kind of get into the team and fill that need. So at that time, she was pretty much picked on to be selected to even try out. And it was white men that saw her and that said, okay, let's see how she'll do being with the men to be able to play baseball. And she did well. Same goes for Mamie Johnson as well. They were all in that same era of time, I want to say 55, 56, where they were being looked at and they were able to play for that team.
I want to stay just with these three women for a moment. What were the teams that they played for during their time in the Negro Leagues?
So for Connie Morgan, she stayed with the Indianapolis Clowns, and that was the only team that she played for. She played for about a year before she retired. And the same is true for Mamie Johnson. She stayed with that team, of course, until that amount of time, and she didn't move to different teams. Now, the only thing different with Toni Stone, at that point in time, Toni Stone and Mamie Johnson were both on the same team for a year, but she was actually the only one that moved to Kansas City or was traded to Kansas City. And that was I'll say, 55, 56 when she was sent to Kansas City. And then Mamie was still on the team for the Clowns. So those are the only two teams that Toni Stone was on. And then, of course, after she pretty much retired after that, and she went back to take care of her husband.
During the making of this short film, what were some of the challenges that they had to endure in terms of traveling? Because, of course, we know during that period of time, racism, segregation was still alive and well. So what were the challenges that they had to face, not just in terms of racism and segregation, but also in terms of the treatment from not just being respected in the league, but even being respected amongst their male counterparts?
Yeah, that was a pretty big obstacle to overcome, I'll say, because these women, like you said, they're not only dealing with racism, but they're dealing with sexism as well. So, of course, when they were going into different cities, they had to be careful that they're not doing anything to offend anyone, because during that time, even walking down a particular street or whistling or whatnot could be a downfall. And so they had to make sure that they were always with someone that they trusted, and that could be a member of the team that they, really felt as though they had like a brotherly friendship with. But not only that, but they couldn't bring their husbands, of course, because their husbands had to work. And so a lot of the times they leaned on each other to be able to say, okay, well, I know that you'll have my back if something were to happen. And, of course, they had to deal with the sexism from their counterparts. A lot of the men that were on the team when Toni Stone was there didn't really like that she was taking Hank Aaron's place, because they thought, I can do better than that. This is a woman. She's never done this before. We've never seen her play. This is her first, team that she's actually on that's official. So why does she get to take his place? And so there was a lot that she had to show to be able to show up for her teammates and to be able to gain their trust. Because essentially that's all baseball is trusting your teammate that if you're covering first base, you're covering second base, you know that if something were to happen, anybody, were to hit, you're able to catch the ball to be able to call them out or to be able to mark them as out. So it's all about a game of trust, and that's what it boiled down to. Of course, at the beginning, there were hardships, there were obstacles in their way, for their teammates and for the managers and the owners and things of that nature, and a lot that they had to go through as well. These ladies had families. These ladies had husbands. So I'm sure there was a lot of conflict with that as well. But they still knew, okay, this is something that will be phenomenal and great for our, not only just the race, but our, as women. People will be able to look back and see that I can do it. I can do this particular sport, just because these ladies are able to do it at that time. So we tried to play a little bit on that tension with the players and their male counterparts in the film. There were a couple of scenes where it was a lot of back and forth between Mamie and the other teammates and then Toni and the other teammates. But essentially, there has to be a level of trust that these ladies have to establish their teammates, and they have to understand that they're there for a reason and that they were able to stand in that position because they got there on their own merit.
You mentioned about these ladies having responsibilities such as families and also husbands. And one of the storylines that was intriguing in the movie that I mentioned earlier, A League of Their Own, it was set during the mid to late 40s. That's when the league had peaked during that period of time. And that was so significant because, again, World War II was at its peak, and there were a lot of men that were overseas representing their country proudly, and the league folded when the war ended. When they played in the Negro Leagues during the 50s, this was post-World War II. Did you have an opportunity to delve deep in the film in terms of the post-World War II when the Negro Leagues were waning a bit, and for the women that were playing in the Negro Leagues?
Yeah. So pretty much what we were able to do, again, with it being a short film, we're not able to expound on a lot as of right now. That's on the table for the feature film that we're trying to get a script together for now. With the short film, it's just a concept to be able to let people see where we're trying to go with it. So that way, when we do get to the feature film, we're able to play on those, just playing with that idea and being able to see that this was a reality for the ladies. So hopefully in the feature film, we're able to play on that.
I want to transition into mental health. Mental health has been a topic that's been talked about for a very long time now, and it's becoming more into the forefront in the Black community, whether it be with Black men or Black women. Mental health was something that they had to endure in terms of the racism and the segregation and just fighting their way to be respected as baseball players and as human beings. Were there any lasting impacts or any repercussions that these women faced as you delve deep into your research and preparing for this short film in terms of dealing with mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just even take into consideration being told no, and that you're capable of doing a position. That's something that even myself, it kind of takes a hit on your self-esteem. So I know for me, preparing for the role of Mamie Johnson, I was able to see a lot of her interviews that she did give, and she was able to speak on a lot of how she felt during that time. I'm sure it definitely, affected their self-esteem and their mental health as well. Because, of course, during that time, a lot of it was you couldn't say exactly what you wanted to say because you don't know how that's going to affect how you are able to move in the future. So a lot of what Mamie Johnson did, she said, I didn't talk a lot, but I performed. And what that means is she didn't really say too much at that time. She just let the game speak for herself. And so if she had people in the crowd or people on the other side saying this and saying that, of course that kind of gets you down. Because again, these women are human. That's the basic things I want people to understand watching this film is, yes, they were courageous and they're heroes and, you know, hidden figures, and we definitely need to hear their story, but they were all still human. So I'm sure hearing no all the time because of the color of your skin and, you know, getting that same treatment from black men and saying, you know, oh, you don't need to do this, you need to be at home, that definitely does something to you. But again, for that time period, they weren't able to verbalize it as we're able to do so now. And so, of course, like I said, these ladies are human, and I'm sure that it did get them down, but they didn't let it stop them. They still were motivated enough to, of course, be able to be a beacon of hope for the women in the community, to be able to say, yes, I have a family, I have this going on, I have that going on, but I still want to be able to live out my dreams.
Doing the research and developing this project, what did you learn about pay, or should I say how their contracts were structured during their time playing in the Negro Leagues?
So from the books that I was able to read, specifically Martha Ackman's book, they were just happy that they were being paid. That's essentially it. They didn't care about this is where you were going to have and this is the amount. They didn't care about any of that. The fact that they were going to get paid to do what they loved, that was just more than anything what they wanted to accomplish. Because at that time, Toni Stone, she wasn't really getting paid to play baseball at that time. She was just playing it to have fun. And so if you're telling her now that you're able to play baseball, but not only play baseball, but you can get paid from doing this, and you don't have to have a second job, third job, fourth job, that was just more than anything to these women, specifically Toni Stone.
Again, that's the short film, directed, produced, and starring in it is Ashleigh Curry, and the name of the short film is called Toni, Mamie, and Connie. Again, thank you so much, Ashleigh, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media, any websites, let the listeners know that as well, and also where can they view the short film Toni, Mamie, and Connie?
Yeah, so right now we have the film. It is on our YouTube page. If you search Noel and Noah Productions, it is on our YouTube page. You can find our YouTube by following us on Facebook. It is Toni, Mamie, Connie, simply put, or on Instagram as @toni.mamie.connie. And once you reach out to our Instagram, you'll be able to see a link there that takes you to our YouTube. And then, of course, if you want to follow myself, my Instagram is Ashleigh, my first name, B. Gilliam, and that, of course, will take you to see there any updates that we have regarding the film.
Awesome, and you heard it from her. Again, she's Ashleigh Curry. She's a director, actor, and a filmmaker who directed the short film Toni, Mamie, and Connie, which tells the story of 3 Black women that played in the Negro League in the 1950s. Ashleigh, thank you so much once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.